Good afternoon and welcome to Pratt and Adviser's second Q&A in relation to the COVID-19. Thank you all for taking the time to join and share your questions. Throughout our presentation, we will answer the questions that have been raised, but if you do have other questions that pop up while we are presenting, please type them into the chat box and we will do our best to answer them during our presentation. First of all, too, I'd like to have a big thank you to Steph, Crystal and IJ and our team for putting all this together. Myself and John Paul are just the fortunate ones that get to speak tonight to these questions. These guys are the ones that have done the hard work behind the scenes. Do though like to thank John Paul and welcome him to the second instalment of our Q&A and for volunteering to help me out with those, John Paul. So thank you for joining us today, John Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
First of all, I will just share a disclaimer in relation to our presentation. This advice is general in nature, and also some of this is not yet passed as formal legislation, with the government due to meet this week, hopefully on Wednesday, to pass the JobKeeper payment, which will be predominantly what we speak about tonight. Therefore, before acting on any of the details we do share, I ask you to seek your own independent advice, whether it's accounting or financial planning, before you act on any of this. So we are just speaking general in nature. So first of all, majority of our questions we've had for those that have registered have been around the JobKeeper payments. So for those that haven't been watching any sort of mainstream news or anything, or chatting to anyone on social media and bits and pieces, last Monday, Mr. Morrison, our PM, announced $130 billion in relation to JobKeeper. So that's distinguishing from the JobSeeker payment. This is the JobKeeper payment, aimed at keeping those employed in work and receiving money. The key highlights with that were $1,500 per fortnight over the following 6 months, with the first lot of funding coming through in May to small business owners when they register for that. As I disclaimed earlier, that is not yet passed legislation, but we're pretty confident the majority of what we will share tonight will actually get passed through Parliament on Wednesday. John Paul, did you want to have a bit of an insight onto what you've taken away from what you've heard from the JobKeeper payments? And we're just chatting about the latest frequently asked questions that the ATO has shared for guidance, as well as some of the questions from our viewers tonight.
Yeah, sure. So the first question that we took on this was from Nerily Olsen, who asked, if an employee has been stood down, do they go back to work on the JobKeeper payment, or do they get the payment and stay not working? So the answer to that question is, once the employee has been stood down, the employee does receive the JobKeeper payment without necessitating going back to work.
Now, what if their employer chooses not to register for JobKeeper, John Paul, for some reason? So they may have met the 30% drop in income, in turnover on a comparable period, but for some reason they've decided not to register. What does that leave the choice for those employees in that position?
So in that case, if the employee loses their job, Paul, you're saying? Is that your query?
Yeah, correct.
So if the employee loses their job and their employer is ineligible to register for JobKeeper, then they would need to register for the JobSeeker program, Paul, I believe.
Yeah, that's my understanding too, John Paul, and we will try to make sure we don't confuse between JobKeeper and JobSeeker tonight when we've been chatting about this at work. It could have been a little bit more distinguishing the names because it is very, very confusing. But yes, JobSeeker for those without employment and not receiving the JobKeeper payment from their employer if their employer chooses to register.
Yeah, so it's an either payment rather than an and payment.
Yes.
One or the other.
Yes. So yeah, direct to Centrelink.
Correct.
So what else have we heard about this, John Paul, from questions that we've had from our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Mark Bond, he queried whether the 30% drop in turnover was for the month or for the previous financial quarter. Now, Paul, I know you've looked sort of a bit closer at this. Even though it's not actually legislation, we've got a fact sheet which has provided us some guidance. So I guess we probably disclaim this firstly by saying this is not legislation yet, and to wait for Wednesday.
Yes.
But how do you understand that?
Yeah, so my understanding on that is when a business is just in normal trading, so year-on-year trading, it is based on a comparable period for the previous financial year. So if we're looking at a drop in the month of March of more than 30%, you're looking at your previous March to see if that makes sense. What I've also seen though is it's also available if you anticipate that there's going to be a drop of 30% in future months over the next 6 months. So we're seeing some businesses right now thrive. So you envisage the local liquor store a couple of weeks ago when everyone thought we're going to lockdown. There was the queues up there and bits and pieces, people stocking up on their alcohol. Think of fruit and veg and butchers over the last month, especially say a fortnight ago. There was a mad rush towards purchasing, but those businesses, they may be impacted in a month or two. They are still.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting you mentioned that, the anticipation, because there's a lot of our clients' businesses have worked for March and even for April, but further work coming in, a lot of it appears to be drying up post that point. So to those clients that are still appear to have a strong April, we do recommend that they register because, as you said, we anticipate the drop in turnover.
Yeah, correct. And the guidance that they've said there, John Paul, is if you can anticipate that there's going to be a drop over the coming 6 months, you should be registering. And as long as you can show that you genuinely believe that was going to be the case, and maybe say even drop by 25%, if you've shown due care when you're looking at that from what we can see, it makes sense to register for that program. You think of those in the trade game and bits and pieces, a lot of them will have work for the next 2 or 3 months with construction projects currently underway. I'm hearing a lot of government contracts have been getting pulled, and even those looking to build and bits and pieces have put those sorts of things on hold. So even though our trades might be busy for the next 2 or 3 months, they could see a drop off coming in this 6 month period. So again, we're suggesting that those people should register and should have a chat to their advisor about how they structure those payments. Also a question we've had internally, but also on the email from a few clients, not specific to this Q&A, is what about if I've got a new business? So I don't actually have a comparable period to compare to, or I've moved premises into a bigger premises, or I've opened up a second site, or something different. So it's not business on business. The advice there is that it's still meant to be on a comparable period, but when there's not, you can actually write to the commissioner. So that's writing to the tax office and asking for them to show discretion to see if you are eligible for it or not. So what I'm suggesting there is, if you're in that position, so your business isn't the same as it was 12 months ago because things have changed because of some growth and bits and pieces, don't rule a line through the fact that your turnover may not have dropped by 30%. You still may be eligible. We just need to sit down and work through whether that you meet the definitions or apply for the commissioner's discretion. So not ideal, but don't rule a line through it. Something to consider.
Yeah, we've actually received a couple of questions already. Firstly, a question from Christy asking what is tax paid on $1,500, and then also a query around the super payments, and then when do I need to start paying the employees these payments? So to answer that, the $1,500 a fortnight is before tax. So if the employer is on a wage of less than $1,500 a fortnight, we have to pay the employee $1,500. And where the employee is on more than $1,500 a fortnight, we have to pay them the full $1,500. And we withhold tax at the normal rate that will be withheld, depending on if someone's on the fortnightly or the weekly cycle. And in terms of superannuation, as I understand it, the superannuation is payable on the full 1,500 if their wage is above that, and if their wage is below the full 1,500, we only have to pay the wage on what their actual wage would be, but have discretion to pay super on the full 1,500. And then the next question we've then had as well, Paul, is when do they need to start paying the employees this payment, Paul, as we understand it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question that you propose there, Christian. I've had discussions with numerous business owners about that. Some fortunately have the cash flow to pay that now because they know they're eligible for it because they've got some cash reserve to pay for that. Keeping in mind that they actually won't get the funding for about another month from the government, so the government will pay that through in early May, back paid to the 30th of March. So unless you've got a justified reason not to pay it, they're saying that you do need to pay it from the time you register. So if you register for this post Wednesday when it goes through as official legislation, there will be a expectation that you do a back pay to the 30th of March to make up for that. We are mindful though, in today's circumstances, you may not have the cash to do that. So again, let's see what happens when this does get passed and see if that is confirmed. If that is the case though, what the government is saying is that we need to be talking to banks and other sources of funding to make those payments, which doesn't really sound fair, and I agree, on small business owners to pay this money out to their employees, especially if they've been stood down and they've got no revenue coming through and that expectation has been created. As I said, the government's argument is that there's other concessions available to access cash, so up to $250,000 as a small business loan from your financial institution. I do know some people that have gone down that path. It's not that straightforward to get that. They're also saying you can pause your ATO repayments, or that, for example, they're refunding your PAYG withholding. Again, those things take time. So I would suggest you chat to your employees if you are not in a financial position to pay those, and come up with an arrangement that works over the coming weeks to end up getting the money in their hands, but also not putting your business to the point where you need to shut your doors because you don't actually have the cash to pay your bills for the next week. So it's a difficult one, Christy. So again, reach out to those around you from an advice perspective, and we can work through a plan on how we deal with that.
Yeah. We've just had another query come through from Nicola asking, as a self-employed person in a company, can I claim these funds through my business and as an employee of my business, or which one should I claim it through? So I think there's probably two answers here, Paul. The first one is Nicola, if you are indeed an employee of your own company, then you would be treated as any other employee. So long as the company is able to show the 30% turnover drop, the company will put the claim in for the $1,500, and then the company will then on-pay you that $1,500 as your wage, as we've said with any other employee. However, but we do have some clients and some people are set up where they're company directors that don't receive wages, but they may receive dividends. Are you eligible? And the answer is yes, you are. However, only one company director is able to receive this $1,500 payment. So whether you're on a wage or whether you're on a dividend, you still do receive that $1,500.
And that also applies to those in a partnership or sole trader as well. So there was a feeling out there until last Monday that part of our small business world had been missed out on funding, and that was correct, but that sort of closed the gap there. What about the mum and dad partnership, where there's a mum and a dad partner, or dad and dad, or mum and mum, in fact? Yeah, that's an interesting one, John Paul, because it's purely just for one person. So you can nominate one person to be eligible in that partnership to receive the JobKeeper payment, not two.
But then the other partner, they can then access the JobSeeker, can't they? Correct.
As long as they meet the definition of the income test, because the asset tests have been waived, but they'd need to meet the income tests, which have also been increased from just under 50,000 to just under 80,000. So,
good.
So it's, look, it's still not the same. It's not the same though as the JobKeeper payment. So I'm hoping that they do consider this when they pass this on Wednesday to see those genuine partnerships where husband and wife are, or two partners, even two, say, third-party partners are working in a business. How do we actually nominate which individual's entitled to those funds? So let's hope they address that. If they don't, again, Commissioner's discretion is an option that we can pursue.
Yeah, Paul, just mindful of probably of time. We've got a bit to get through here already, so
we could keep chatting about this one all night, couldn't we, JP?
I think so. Actually, one other question has just come through. My two employees are casual, and their hours vary week to week. Do I average it out in regards to super paid on their normal wage when I pay the $1,500?
I'm happy to field that one, JP, if you like.
Good.
So our understanding, Christy, on that is that it's each payroll you need to work out how many hours they have actually physically worked versus the hours that you are topping them up for. So let's say, for example, they're on $25 an hour and do 10 hours for the week. So they'll be entitled to $250, and they don't work the following week. You would pay them that $250 as normal wages. If that triggers superannuation being need to pay on that, yes, you would. And the other $1,250 would not attract superannuation. So it's going to create a little bit of work from a bookkeeping sense on processing pays on a weekly, fortnightly, or a monthly basis. Depending on what program you use, there may be a little bit easier to use. So I know Xero, for example, are working on things in the background to try and make this a little bit more seamless, because the comment's been made to me that some business owners are going to be like a quasi Centrelink office to process these payments. And they've got to be mindful of the work that creates for the business owner to facilitate those payments. So, Christy, it is a little bit more work that you're going to have to do to process those payments. Again, if you need a hand, happy to help.
Good. And last one on from Nerali. Is there any limitations to JobKeeper for employees, i.e. their partner's income or assets, or is it strictly if just the employer is eligible? So the answer to that, Nerali, is it strictly if the employer is eligible for the $1,500 payment to receive that, they then pay the employee irrespective of their personal situation, assets, partner's income, or the like. So it's not means tested in any way, shape or form.
Spot on. Thanks, John Paul, and thanks those for the questions. And we would like to keep talking about JobKeeper, but we're going to move on because there's a couple of other questions we've had in relation to some state government money that's been announced and was passed not last weekend, the weekend before. So I'm going to ask John Paul to explain the two key parts there. So the payroll tax refund for some businesses, as well as small business support fund grants that are available.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Probably one that will impact a number of our clients' businesses is the payroll tax refunds. And I think if I can make a valued comment, I believe this is one where not only has the government got it right, but they've made it very easy for you to collect it and to receive it. So any business who pays their payroll tax monthly and has annual wages up to $3 million, that's annual taxable wages, being super inclusive, they'll have their payroll tax for the year waived. So, and secondly, to get the refund of what you've already paid for the year, it's simply a case of logging in as you normally would do to do your monthly return. And there's one option down the side where you click apply for refund, enter the amount of payroll tax which you paid, and then put the refund reason as being COVID-19. And we've actually had a number of clients who have already received this refund, Paul. So within the space of a week. So this is one that we're really thrilled with the state government. And so if you need any of your clients need a hand with that, feel free to give us a call. But if you've paid any payroll tax monthly, log in, apply for a refund, you get your money back in a week. It's that simple.
Now, on that, John Paul, do you still need to continue to lodge your monthly payroll tax returns?
Great question, Paul. That's correct. You will need to lodge your March, April, May and June payroll tax returns as a matter of course for their data collection purposes. However, when the liability is calculated, you will not have to pay any payroll tax. And so then also accordingly, for our annual payroll tax lodgers, they will still need to lodge their annual return in early July. However, they will not have any payroll tax due. And and further to that, there is also going to be a payroll tax deferral for the first 3 months of the next financial year too. So there'll be no payroll tax for the monthly lodgers for July, August and September, and the same thing for the annual lodgers again. So another small win for the employer, which is great. The second major one we just wanted to touch on was there's some small business support fund grants. So there's up to $10,000 available per business in government funding. So to be eligible for that, you simply need to employ staff or have working people in your business, either be closed or significantly impacted by the current closure of non-essential businesses, turnover greater than $75,000, and have a payroll of less than $650,000. Now, this funding can be used for meeting your normal business costs, assisting with rent, utilities, supplies, etc., or seeking financial or any other help, any other professional advice to help your business through planning through this, or engage in marketing activities to help keep your business viable, or any other supportive activities to keep the business open. So that's the other one that we think is really great that's available out there.
Now, I know clients of mine have applied for those.
Yep.
I haven't yet seen or heard from them to see if they've actually received the funding as yet. So I don't know how quick the turnaround is on those grants at this stage. So that's the state government covered off on. We've been asked a couple of questions about when to close the doors. A couple of weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to interview Abby Goff from HR Sorted. So some people have been forced to close their doors through the announcements from shutdowns and bits and pieces. And I'm not going to go into any detail in that, but if you do want to know more about what the options are if you're forced to shut down versus making the choice to shut down with your employees and their entitlements, there is a video on our YouTube channel that goes into detail around what your options are there, specifically with stand down clause provisions that may be available. Question though, what should the business do if they've got definite signs of slowing down because of cash flow, and when should they shut it down? What our advice is there is to, before you make that decision to close down, is to contact your advisor and sit down and work through all the, not just the funding that's available, but also the deferral options and bits and pieces, and assess based on the current trading conditions. Is this just a timing issue with your business, and can we trade through it to come out the other side, not only just afloat, but in a stronger position? Is there some things that we can do to look to pivot and bits and pieces? So
what would some of those levers be for?
So some of those levers. So you're seeing a lot of those in the hospitality industry going down the takeaway and delivery path. But some of them are thinking not just your standard takeaway versus delivery. So they're packaging things up. They're all doing meal plans for the full week. They're offering free delivery. They're doing not just the stand, so they're being forced to think on their feet, and some of these are actually coming out the other side in a more profitable business than what they were before they went into this as well, because they've been challenging the status quo in bits and pieces. On that though, what I'm probably trying to make sure the point is, don't give up unless you've had a really good detailed chat and multiple discussions with those that you trust from an advice perspective, because we believe there is solutions for most businesses out there to get through this, and there is the support available through advisors, through funding and bits and pieces. Unfortunately, some businesses may not come out the other side. The government though is doing everything possible, as you can see, with spending pretty much $500 billion into the economy over the next 6 months, and deferrals and bits and pieces to give those business owners an opportunity to get through this difficult time. something that we've acknowledged and started chatting about over the last week at Pursuit is not just trying to access the government funding, like that's to deal with now, but what can we do to build a stronger and leaner business to come out the other side? So over the next few weeks and then beyond, we're looking at doing some more Q&A and blogs and bits and pieces around communication, around some tips and tricks and ideas to help business owners come through the other side. We are seeing some of our business owners taking some calculated punts, or as I said, being more profitable as they were. They're thriving under these conditions, and acknowledge that's not everyone. But the real entrepreneurs here, if they can think laterally and pivot, we feel there's genuine opportunity to set yourself up to come out the other side in a position that at least keeps your team employed, looks after your family, and can go back on beyond, I suppose, coronavirus into what the new normal will be. I think you can see there's a lot more people out there supporting local businesses. It's unfortunate that something like this has taken us to realise how fortunate we are in our backyard with the local business owners that we do have and the things they do for our community. But our community now is uniting as one behind those. And
yeah, there has been a real movement on social media behind disseminating information on what a lot of local businesses are doing and supporting them, which is great.
And I encourage you to share those when you see them, and not just think about the now, think about the beyond, and don't go back into what was mainstream behaviour beforehand. Like they will need our support, not just in these six months, these small business owners and yourselves. We need this well past this 6 months. So yeah, I suppose to have a little bit of a practice what we teach sort of thing here from at Pursuit. Don't just do it now, do it ongoing to help out those. So stay tuned for what we're going to be doing in that space. We've got some cool ideas around how we can help you guys come through this stronger. So we'll share more over the coming weeks. I did have a question around what might be seen a good investment in the recovery from COVID-19. And as I spoke about earlier, we cannot give direct advice, and we're not licensed to provide financial advice either. So all I can say is just, again, think laterally, think outside the box. Like those people that are entrepreneurs that challenge the status quo will come through this the other side. We're already I was speaking to a colleague that's got an advisory firm in Sydney. His client pretty much lost everything that he was doing. He was a plastics business, and then he approached one of the major supermarkets, and now he's making plastic screens and bits and pieces for that supermarket, which is going to be near on 12 months of their turnover. And the government is supporting them to do that. And I'm hearing more stories like that where the government is actually prepared to take a punt on some businesses to help them do that. There's another one in Adelaide where they've rejigged what they're doing to make masks. So protective masks, about 150 million of them, and they're already been pre-booked and ordered. Another private enterprise being supported.
And there's been some breweries and distilleries also converting themselves into making hand sanitizer now, I see as well.
Yeah, spot on. So
as you said, Paul, it's all about seeing the opportunity rather than, being negative in thought.
Yeah, you're more a detailed person than me, JP. Have I missed any questions that anyone's asked over the time, or that we've been asked the last couple of days to discuss?
Look, I think potentially we were questioned about the POIG withholding cash flow stimulus and how that would work as well. Now, I'm just probably mindful of time, but just for any business that has employees on wages, it's a minimum of $20,000 stimulus, $10,000 being paid between March and June, and $10,000 being paid across the June to September period, the timing of which will differ whether you're a monthly or a quarterly POIG lodger, and that's up to a maximum of $100,000. So a minimum of 20 and a maximum of $100,000. We do encourage you to speak to your advisor for further detail on the timing of that to then help you plan your cash flow, as you said, through this period.
Thanks, John Paul, for clarifying that one. I had had that as an oversight, so I'm glad you're here. Thank you everyone for joining us at the start of this short week before the run into Easter. Thanks John Paul for your candid answers, and thank you again to Steph, Crystal and IJ for what they've put together, and the wider team at Pursuit for what they're doing behind the scenes to work through this. And yeah, we're happy to chat to anyone, complimentary initial phone call or meeting to work through what solutions may be available for your business if you're not getting that advice elsewhere. And just a reminder to support local businesses where you can, and if you are struggling with what's happening with coronavirus or know someone that is suffering due to this, please help them out. And if you're not in a position to help them out, recommend they chat to someone like Beyond Blue. It is quite important that we help each other through this process.
Absolutely. Thanks again, everyone, for their questions and their participation. And I, for one, look forward to doing more of these soon. Any other questions people have, feel free to send them through and we'll send you an email response.
Thanks, guys, and yeah, have a safe Easter and we'll chat again soon.